In 1930, the British Empire ruled nearly a quarter of the world. It had armies, weapons, prisons, and laws. Yet one man challenged that empire without firing a single bullet. He did not attack a palace. He did not burn a flag. He simply picked up salt. That moment revealed a truth humans had learned over 8,000 years. Control salt and you control life itself. Lose salt and societies weaken. Economies fracture and civilizations collapse. This is not symbolism or exaggeration. This is documented history written into the rise and fall of human power. Long before money, writing, or cities existed, humans discovered something essential to survival. Salt preserves food and stabilizes life. Archaeological evidence shows organized salt production as early as 6000 BCE in Eastern Europe, particularly in areas of modern Romania and Bulgaria. These were not isolated discoveries. Entire communities formed around salt springs, becoming some of the earliest permanent settlements in Europe. Salt allowed food to last beyond a single hunt or harvest. It made survival predictable and settlement possible. Early trade networks also emerged around salt, connecting villages and creating one of humanity's first economic systems. In ancient Egypt, salt was both practical and sacred. By around 3000 BCE, Egyptians used natron salt from the Natron Valley to preserve food and to mummify the dead. Mummification was not decoration. It was a religious requirement tied to beliefs about the afterlife. Without salt, Egypt's spiritual system, burial practices, and concept of eternity would have been fundamentally different. Salt supported religion, economy, and identity at the same time. Salt also played a role in medicine. Egyptian physicians used salt for wound care and hygiene, understanding its preservative and protective properties centuries before modern science. In Asia, salt became a foundation of state power. In China, salt production dates back to at least 2000 BCE. By the 4th century BCE, Chinese engineers were drilling deep underground brine wells, using bamboo pipelines and iron tools. This technology would not appear in Europe for nearly 2,000 years. Salt became so valuable that Chinese dynasties established strict government monopolies. Revenue from salt taxes funded armies, canals, flood control systems, and imperial administration. For centuries, salt income was one of the strongest pillars of Chinese governance. Beyond administration, salt influenced social structures, dictating trade routes and settlement patterns along rivers and lakes. In the Mediterranean world, salt helped build empires. By around 300 BCE, the Romans actively controlled salt routes across Italy. The Via Salaria, or Salt Road, connected coastal salt flats to the city of Rome. Salt allowed Roman legions to preserve meat and march farther than their enemies, while soldiers were not literally paid in salt. The Latin word salarium, the root of salary, reflects salt's deep economic value. Even modern language carries traces of its importance. Roman engineers also developed early preservation techniques combining salt with smoking and drying, creating reliable military provisions that could sustain campaigns across vast territories. After the Roman Empire declined, salt did not lose power. During the Middle Ages, salt trade routes became the backbone of European economies. Venice grew wealthy by controlling salt production and exports across the Adriatic Sea. In Central Europe, towns like Salzburg, meaning salt fortress, were built entirely around salt mines. In England, brine towns such as Droitwich and Nantwich became regional economic centers. Because salt was essential for preserving meat, butter, and cheese through winter, salt also influenced taxation policies, funding infrastructure projects such as bridges, roads, and marketplaces. Far from Europe, salt shaped African empires. From at least the 8th century CE, massive camel caravans crossed the Sahara Desert carrying salt from mines like Tagaza and Taoudni to cities such as Timbuktu. These journeys covered hundreds of miles through extreme heat and dangerous terrain. In West Africa, salt was often traded weight for weight with gold. Empires like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai rose by taxing and protecting these trade routes. Where salt flowed, wealth and knowledge followed. Salt trade also indirectly supported education, as cities like Timbuktu became centers of learning, libraries, and scholarship funded by the wealth salt brought in. In 1591, Morocco invaded the Songhai Empire. The goal was not land alone. It was control of the trans-Saharan salt and gold trade. That invasion shattered one of West Africa's most powerful states and reshaped regional history. Salt was not a background resource. It was a strategic objective worth fighting wars over. Even in diplomacy, Salt often appeared in treaties as a form of tribute or trade regulation, influencing the political balance across regions. Salt also became a tool of control and oppression. In medieval France, the Gabelle salt tax forced citizens to buy government salt at inflated prices. Smuggling became widespread. Punishments were severe. Resentment quietly grew for generations. By 1789, anger fueled in part by salt taxation helped ignite the French Revolution. Once again, control of salt exposed the weakness of authority. The same pattern appeared in colonial India. Under the Salt Act of 1882, the British banned Indians from collecting their own salt, even from the sea. Everyone had to buy heavily taxed government salt. In March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi began the Salt March, walking over 240 miles to the coast. When he picked up salt from the ground, he broke the law peacefully. That simple act exposed the injustice of colonial rule and became a turning point. In India's independence movement, the Salt March also inspired similar nonviolent movements worldwide, demonstrating how a basic resource could challenge imperial authority. If this story is changing how you see something as ordinary as salt, take a moment to like the video. It helps this channel reach people who care about real, well-researched history. And if you enjoy documentaries like this, subscribe, because many everyday foods carry stories just as powerful. Beyond politics, salt shaped exploration and global expansion. European sailors could not have crossed oceans without salted food. Salted fish and cured meat kept crews alive for months at sea, enabling long-distance voyages. This directly supported global trade, colonization, and the first interconnected world economy. Ports controlling salt supplies gained strategic importance. Nations mastering food preservation gained naval dominance. Salt quietly powered maritime empires. Salt also influenced early navigation science. Understanding how to store food for long voyages allowed explorers to map coastlines, discover new continents, and build trade networks that would endure for centuries. Salt also shaped daily survival. Before refrigeration, it was humanity's most reliable preservative. It allowed meat, fish, vegetables, and dairy to last months instead of days. Cities depended on salted food. Armies marched on it. Entire diets formed around preserved fish like cod and herring. Foods we still eat today including cheese, pickles, cured meats, soy sauce, and fermented vegetables exist because of salt. Salt fermentation even led to culinary experimentation, influencing flavor, nutrition, and cultural identity across civilizations. Culturally, salt symbolized trust, purity, and protection. Offering bread and salt became a sacred sign of hospitality across Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Religious rituals used salt to seal covenants and ward off evil. Even today, phrases like worth their salt reflect ancient beliefs about value and reliability. Festivals and seasonal rituals often incorporated salt as a symbol of renewal, health, or protection, highlighting its spiritual importance alongside practical uses. For thousands of years, salt was harvested through solar evaporation or boiling brine. Only in the 19th century did industrial mining and vacuum evaporation make salt cheap and widely available. What was once called white gold became ordinary, yet its importance never disappeared. Modern science further uncovered salt's roles in chemistry, medicine, and nutrition, showing that this humble mineral remains foundational to life and human development. Today, salt remains essential beyond food. It is critical for medicine, chemical production, water treatment, and road safety. Modern health debates focus on excess salt, but history reminds us that most of humanity suffered because salt was scarce, controlled, or taxed. It shaped supply chains, industrial processes, and even space exploration. Where preserved food ensures survival during missions, salt decided where cities were built, how empires were funded, and when revolutions began. It crossed deserts, preserved armies, supported exploration, and exposed injustice. Few substances have shaped human history this deeply. Its story is a testament to the power of simple, overlooked resources in shaping civilization. So the next time you see salt on your table, pause for a moment. You are looking at a substance that once ruled the world. Every grain carries centuries of survival, trade, culture, and revolution. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe and share it. Comment which everyday foods hidden history you want next, because the smallest ingredients often carry the greatest stories.